Happy Halloween, everybody!
Nothing happened before this. Nothing has gone wrong.
All the people on YouTube, this is where the show started, and you can't prove anything else. That's right. All we need to do now is do a quick test. Chat works too. It's really small for some reason, but chat works too. I'll fix that later. At least it's coming up. I'm happy. It's Halloween. I finished my big project I've been working on at work. All that stress is gone. And then on top of it, I got my PS5 on the same day. Well, not my PS5. I got my uncle's PS5 on the same day. I get to go deliver that to him. It's going to be fun. Last Christmas, I told him, don't worry, I'm going to get you a PS5 for Christmas. It's October now.
You didn't say which Christmas.
It's for a Christmas.
But I got it, and I'm going to get it to him before a full year. And you know what? Considering the state of PS5s today, that's not that bad. That's not that bad. It really is.
Yeah, I'm still holding out for God of War Ragnarok. That'll be when I try and get mine. But we'll see. I might just have to wait for the PC release.
It might just come out on PC too. PlayStation, they've formed a formal PC studio now.
PlayStation PC is a thing. Yep. Bloodborne is coming.
Yep.
Yeah, fingers crossed, man.
Don't even need to cross them. Bloodborne is coming. 100%. 100%. Not a doubt in my mind. It might hit PS5 exclusive for a year. And I wouldn't be surprised.
That would be the logical thing to do, because Bloodborne, with a PS5 performance patch and like upscaling and higher res assets and 60 FPS, will sell a shitload of PS5s.
Not that they're having a huge issue selling them as it is.
No.
It's not like there's a whole bunch sitting on the shelves.
But even if the supply crisis was not a thing, like let's say Bloodborne PS5 comes out, a year from now, all of the silicon shortages are, more or less resolved. You're starting to actually see PS5s on shelves. Release Bloodborne then. Everybody will buy one.
And honestly, okay, I called this. Just saying, I called this when PS5 was coming out. As soon as PS5 said it's going to have near full compatibility with PS4, I was like, PS4s are going to be like $200. And that's worth.
There's no reason to keep your PS4.
That's worth. You know what? If you don't have a PS4, if you've never played Bloodborne, $200 for a used PS4 Pro and a copy of Bloodborne is fucking worth it. And I've already seen it. There was a modded, jailbroken PS4 Pro with like 12 games or something on it, like good games, all set up on it, and you were asking $400. Now that's a little up there. It's $100 more than what I was calling, but that's jailbroken, modded, all the games and everything on it. That's at least $100 worth of value. Now, $400 is not actually a terrible price to ask for that. You're going to see $200 to $300 PS4 Pros. You're going to see it. Keep your eyes open. Worth scooping one if you're not getting the 5.
I'm sure that the PS4 base edition is already $200, but if you can get a PS4 Pro for that price, go for it.
Yeah. The experience is so much better on the Pro. It really is. Just nice, constant frame rates are so nice to have. Constant-ish frame rates.
The base PS4 was a little frame droppy in most games I played on it.
It was great for its time, but it's a little long in the tooth now.
Yeah, what? 9 years old? Something like that?
Jesus.
Yeah, about getting up there, just about 9 years old.
Wow. PS4 is 9?
PS5 is almost a year old now. We're getting... Time flies.
It does. I actually watched The Explained about time last night. It was rather interesting. I'm not going to go into all the details of it, but I actually strongly recommend watching that one. I actually like that show. Explained is rather interesting. Every time I see an episode, I'm like, oh, do I really want to learn about that? Or I think I already know a lot about that. And then I watch it, I'm like, this is really interesting. Why didn't I watch this earlier? Happens every time with that show. Like the fairy tales one. I was like, I know fairy tales. And then I watched it, I was like, this is really interesting. Why do I think I know about fairy tales? There's always more to learn.
Always.
Okay. Yakuza 5. Did Rage actually watch any?
I watched a bit,
Okay.
but I kind of know what's going on.
I thoroughly enjoyed 5. Just as a blanket statement, I did thoroughly enjoy it. It was a good game. A little strange at times, but a good game.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because the arc of Yakuza games, it's like 1 and 2 are solid, and then it just dips down really hard, and 3 and 4 are kind of okay, but they kind of find themselves again with 5, and then onwards as well. But yeah, 5's a solid entry.
I can't wait for 7. But yeah, let's talk about 5 instead of going on to 7. The world building is really interesting in 5 because you do actually see a lot more places than in most Yakuza games.
Well, that's good. That's good. The one of the complaints we had previously, well, not really a complaint, just a statement of fact, was that you do spend so much time in Kamurocho. So,
though I missed Kamurocho most of the time, I was in other places.
Yeah, I think there's 5 districts that you go to.
There's 3 cities that you visit and run around in. There are then 2 other places, 3 if you count the orphanage, but you don't really get to control at the orphanage. You just kind of does scenes there. But you get to go in the mountains, and you get the prison, and then you get the 3 or 4 cities, something like that. Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, there's 3 new cities.
Plus Kamurocho.
Yeah, and then I think Osaka is still, is still in there as well. Or whatever the place was from Yakuza 2, I believe is still in 5. So, yeah, there's quite a range of places. It's not just Kamurocho, and they expand on a lot in this game. They really kind of, there's all the, still all the protagonists. So it's not just Kiryu as it was for so long. They start kind of diversifying a little bit and kind of breaking down everyone's kind of backstories and all that good stuff. It really kind of doesn't just start to fall into a formula. It starts to kind of actually expanding a little bit more while still staying true to the series,
which is very nice to see, because you get 5 games in most series, and they're going to be pretty much the same thing over and over again.
Starts getting a little stale after 4 or 5 of doing the exact same thing, which is crazy because you're kind of doing the exact same thing in this. They do throw some curveballs in this. No. I mean, mechanically, they throw some fucking curveballs in this game. Like, serious fucking curveballs. I've never seen anything like it. But it still manages to feel like Yakuza. It still manages to all fit together. And I do feel like I learned more about different places. Like, they make you interact with the people in the new areas to give you an idea of what the life is actually like in these different disparate areas of Japan, different lifestyles, different viewpoints. I think it was actually good world building.
Yeah, I mean, based on what I saw and what you guys have said, I would say that yes, that qualifies for good. They've kept everything that was great about the previous games and expanded upon it in a way that is meaningful and helpful to the player.
Meaningful at times. It's not always meaningful, but not every swing is a home run.
Yeah, and it kind of just addresses what we were kind of going on with the previous Yakuza reviews, saying like even when the world building would just hit okay, it was mostly just because they're leveraging so much of the previous stories, and Kamurocho has been around for a long time now, and we wanted to see some other areas get kind of built out, and it's what they started to do here.
Yeah, and I mean, how many times do you get to punch a bear unconscious?
I mean, in the Yakuza series, more than you'd think.
I was just saying, in the Yakuza series, that actually gets kind of common. So,
yeah. Well, I don't remember bear. I remember tiger. I don't remember bear. I know I fought tiger before. Here you beat up a tiger.
This does not surprise me.
Without major spoilers, the game does a fantastic job of building on the existing world. creating a more human, fleshed out understanding. There we go. One thing I want to quickly mention before we start giving the characters a good, because the characters are good.
It's a Yakuza game.
And honestly, some of my favorite Yakuza characters so far, with some of the new ones they added, they were fantastically written, beautifully done, beautifully voice acted, beautifully sculpted, great characters. But I was watching the new Guardians of the Galaxy game not too long ago. One of my streamer friends streaming it, and as I was watching it, I don't know why, but my brain put them together and realized that the Yakuza formula would be perfect for superhero games.
Oh yeah, 100%. Make them way more interesting.
Oh man, I was like, oh man, if they did this superhero game like a Yakuza game, because they had all these little mini games in the game, like flying the ship through the asteroids and all these things as it's sort of telling a narrative, and I'm like, mini games, good characters, deep story and narrative. That's a Yakuza game. Just make superhero games like Yakuza games, and you've got a fucking game.
And you can have way more interesting combat because you're not limited by humans. Yep.
And, the big thing with superheroes, and one of the major complaints from people that truly like superheroes, is the stories. The comic books were good stories. That's why people liked them. The games are not good stories. They're fucking retarded half the time.
Although I will say that the Batman games did okay.
Yeah.
Not great, but they did okay.
It's a blanket statement. Not every game is going to fall under it in the same level, but in general, superhero games kind of weak. Not really the greatest games put out. And I just saw like, oh my god, what if they did it this way? And in my brain I was like, yes, I would play that. That would be interesting for me. Imagine the expose and everything you could do, bringing all that emotion and feeling and meaning back into superhero stories.
But you'd have to get like actually good voice actors, and Mark Hamill has said he's done voicing Joker.
That's okay. There are still other good Jokers. Get Jack Nicholson in to redo Joker.
Fuck, that'd be great.
that'd be wild.
I mean, there's solutions. There's solutions. New characters have been added to the cast of Yakuza, and they are on point and par with the top characters in the story. Some of the new ones are our favorites. I don't want to name names to give things away, but we all know who I'm talking about, right, Pseudo?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Yeah, that character was a home run.
God.
I got rage.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I like that one.
Storyline.
Yakuza game. It's a good.
It is. But it's almost not.
They took weird directions with this one, especially, and it's something I'll bring up during mechanics as well. When there's
yes, I have something to say during the mechanics portion.
a good sizable chunk of the game with Haruka is it's a interesting, I'm not gonna say twist, but just I guess design choice, and I'm not sure if it fits the best.
It's weird. Also, the hunter simulator. At least it was short, but that was just like, where are we going? where are we going with this one, game? Where's this one tying in? And it just doesn't.
Yeah, this one's a little all over the place. It kind of has a lot kind of going on. Not all of it kind of really fits together as tight and as neatly as previous entries, but the actual overall story arc and the storyline that's kind of in between all that shit is still very good. It keeps you very much entwined into what's going on. Only issue is that the pacing is quite different from the other ones, where is quite a bit of lull time in between with really weird segments that are kind of very different from typical Yakuza games.
I called it.
I still think very overall. Yeah, I still think overall though it's still the main part of the game.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, the parts where it went really, really weird, and I was just like, what are you doing, game? They weren't long enough to make me stop playing it. It's just like, as I'm starting to go like, why are we doing this? It just ended and went back to Yakuza. I was like, okay, I'll just pretend that didn't happen. Just continue on my way.
And I feel like to a degree, some of that is probably to do with the fact that you are not Japanese. Like you don't have that culture. You don't have the expectations for how things will be done in a story. You don't have the expectations for how, characters will interact, et cetera, et cetera. But that being said, this is a globally successful series now, and they do need to recognize that, some of those risks that they took aren't necessarily going to land. And maybe
sure
that was a conscious decision. Maybe they went, we're going to try this, see how it works in other markets.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally fair. And like I said, I'm not against it. I'm okay with it. It was interesting. I don't know that it's so much a cultural thing as much as maybe they just tried to go out on a limb and do something different, because that is Yakuza. Yakuza has always been everywhere, kind of different, kind of out on a limb. And I see the Yakuza series much the same as I see Nintendo game releases. They're going to try to do something new. They're going to try to do something innovative. They're going to try to do something different. And there's like a 30-40% chance that they'll get it right, which is way above most industry. I'm not knocking Nintendo and them. Like 30 to 40% innovation success is amazing in games. Most of the time, your innovation is going to be ass.
Yeah, generally you're lucky to get, 10 to 20% success rate when you're trying new things. But the way that they approach it, I think by keeping their foundation solid, that basically that whole writing section that we just talked about is the foundation of the Yakuza games. So, as long as they keep that solid, they can try out all sorts of other stuff. And there you go.
Now, Pseudo's better for this part because he knows better at the release of the game than I do. Even if he didn't play it right at release, he played it earlier than I did. How was the performance? Because I'll tell you this much, Yakuza 5 remastered on... Is it remastered? Or is it just Yakuza 5?
I believe the PC is a remaster.
Okay. The Yakuza 5 PC remaster I played ran fantastically on my super top-of-the-line computer.
That's ran
what I
fine.
can say.
I played it on PS4 Pro, but it ran fine. I mean... don't think I had any issues with that. There's nothing really too crazy going on. It is it was a remaster as well. I believe I played on that. So I think when the original was out, but for the time it was a new engine that they were using to make everything. So everything was a bit more high fidelity than the previous entries. But I don't remember there being any complaints on that front, and it's typically kind of common. At least it was in the day for console first games that they wouldn't have performance issues. There was bars to meet that don't seem to be there anymore today.
Heavenly Sword would like to have a word with you.
Yeah,
that was the early 2010s. That was different.
I think, yes, it's seventh generation. Seventh generation. There was when we really started seeing that quality metric.
Right. And we're going to give it a good here, I guess. Good performance. If somebody wants to jump in and do the animations, I'm going to turn my camera off for a moment here while I put this burrito in my face. Because I was so late on getting started, I didn't get to eat my breakfast burrito.
So honestly, I only watched about maybe 3 hours combined, and what I saw in the animation side of things was more or less the same as in other Yakuza games. Definitely good enough, definitely serviceable, but not what I would call particularly standout.
Yeah, that's right where it is.
Yeah, it still falls in the same pitfalls that were in the previous entries, and it doesn't really change too much until we get to
7?
Either 7's a good example, or even like not the spin-offs, but the Divergence, like Lost Judgment and stuff like that, have a bit more of the tighter animations in their combat styles, where it's not as arcadey. It's still fairly arcadey, but the transitions are handled quite a bit better.
It's true. I was watching some Last Judgment while Val was playing it, and man, that's a very smooth looking game.
Yeah, those are now the Yakuza games.
Yeah, I know. They kept
yesterday past.
They kept the Yakuza system going as the Judgment line. This way, they don't abandon the fans that love that genre, and they're able to convert the game to a new genre. And it's the best way I've ever seen anybody change the genre of a series.
Cough, cough, Squeenix.
Yeah. I don't care that they wanted to do a new formula for Final Fantasy, and I'm glad some people like it, but don't just give up on all of the thousands and hundreds of thousands of fans, millions of fans around the world of the old game style. We don't want to rebuy a pixel remaster of a game we've beat 100 times for $50, okay? Yeah, it's enough Squeenix ranting.
Legit though, I'm happy that they've finally committed to just making Final Fantasy an action game and have got some good people on board to do the combat.
Still won't buy it.
I'm just glad that they've committed. Just commit one way or the other.
The proverbial shit or get off the pot.
Yep.
So animation. Does somebody want to fill that out? Does somebody want to jump in? There's a link in the chat there.
I suppose.
I'll give it the okay. The old yellow K.
Animation in this title was par for the course as far as the Yakuza series goes. Perfectly serviceable, but not stand out. Blam. So visual style.
The animation isn't nearly as good as the animation of the animator I've been looking at hiring.
It's hype. Hype, hype, hype.
Style? What do we usually give Yakuza games on style? I think we usually give it a good, don't we?
Yeah, and it's one of those kind of interesting topics since it's quite realistic, but they still find a way to, add a gritty and kind of unique take on the kind of Yakuza culture and the underground culture that's kind of there, but still keeping true to, how a lot of their cities and their nightlife looks. And the cities and stuff like that.
It's real enough to look right, but it's stylized enough to not look bad as the game's date.
Yeah,
or to look boring. They've done a good job keeping things visually interesting and yet still visually distinct so that you can tell where you are.
And a lot of the style comes from the characters themselves. A lot of their personality is shown just when you see them, and the way that they walk, the way that they, are dressed, how they're styled themselves, all that kind of stuff is where a lot of that kind of emotion and background is just conveyed.
So what you're saying is both the character box and the style box should say 10 out of 10 has Majima.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
Okay, gotcha.
That is precisely what we're saying.
Then I agree. And it sounds like we're all in accordance with a good, and the chat isn't overly chatty today, so nobody's telling us, you can't call that good! So it is good. See what happens?
Nobody says otherwise.
See what happens? If you don't show up and tell us off, we just call things good. Take that.
It turns out most video games these days are pretty good.
Yeah.
It's the ones that we're paying attention to.
Yeah. There's a lot of games out there.
You open up most eShops now and you're just like, whoa, what's this?
That's a lot of shovelware.
You went that direction, did you? Style is very consistent. The areas can be easily recognized. everything. The style is consistent, yet individual. Excuse me. Each area is unique, but still looks like it fits in the same world.
My left ear is very itchy.
Well, then you should scratch your ear, Rage. Welcome back to the table. Go on, scratch the ear.
Oh, I did. I did before I typed that.
Oh, I missed it. I only looked when I was doing it because I was typing and looking at the screen while I was typing, not looking at my keyboard while I was typing.
I fancy that.
So
Ability to touch type. Check.
I had to break that habit back in the day, looking at my keyboard all the time. It was an issue for me originally. Let's move this over here. No, let's move this over here. I just want to fall. There we go. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I always had this habit of looking down. There were certain keys that I'd hit, and I just, like, even if I know where it is, I habitually look down every time, and it was pissing me off. I wanted to break it. So I popped the keys off of my keyboard, and I put them back in the wrong order.
Very useful.
Yes.
Also, the ability to swap keycaps is underrated.
Because I actually have one that's already worn out on my 15.
Wow, really?
Damn.
That did not last very long. You can order custom keycaps from WASD.
You see the S?
That's a thing that you can do. Oh, wow.
I've got a triangle worn through it. Just the light comes through.
That didn't last very long. Those are cheap keycaps.
I type a lot, dude.
Yeah, so do I.
I mean, it's the only key. Oh, I guess D is starting to wear through a little bit, too. Just the black. Worn through the black on the top. Yeah. Otherwise, I love the fucking keyboard. Love the keyboard. Also, bot got all the information right.
Yeah, it did. It's impressive.
Stream is improving. It may not look like it, but I actually do work.
Who'd have thunk it?
Musical score, okay.
Yeah, it was fine.
There is music that fits.
Never really takes you out of the situation at hand, just like we say in every Yakuza game. It's totally serviceable. It enhances the emotion of the scene, but it's nothing that you'll like remember.
The idle part with that song, it's lucky that it's a pretty decent song because it plays a lot.
Oh, yeah. The different songs for the idle thing. Yeah, there was a few different songs there. Three or four, something like that. But you do hear them a lot.
It's the same song for a long time, so thankfully it's pretty good. But it would have been like it's a big ask to have a huge selection for it's not a subplot, but it's like just not
a chapter. Just call it a chapter. All that work just for a chapter of the game.
For a chapter of the game, but yeah, if it wasn't good, then it would be very, very obvious. Because my God,
if it wasn't a good song, if it like made my ears bleed when I listened to it, I probably wouldn't have finished the game. No, I would have got to that part and I would have just been like, no.
Yeah, we're done here.
Voice acting. Do we need to say anything? Yakuza voice acting is always the gold seal standard in the industry. Period. That's just where we've gotten to. That's the bar. That's my bar. Is it better than Yakuza? No, because nothing's better than Yakuza. Is it close to Yakuza? Then it's good.
I don't think there's ever been another series that has done quite as well with the voice acting as Yakuza has, and it really shows. It shows that they've gotten professional voice actors from a country that takes voice acting very, very seriously, far more seriously than we do here in North America. And they've really honed the art form, and they're delivering as well as they possibly can.
The best game I can think of to get close to Yakuza on voice acting is probably L.A. Noire.
LA Noire was good. Detroit Become Human has some very, very good characters in it.
I didn't play that one because I don't consider it a game.
It's because it's not. It's a video. I watched it, but it does have some very good voice acting in it as well. But those are the only ones that I can think of that like even come close.
And LA Noire is a real. It's an anomaly in the gaming world because the whole point of the game was the voice acting and facial reactions. The entire engine was built to get accurate voice and facial emotion as they're talking to try to let you detect when they're lying or telling the truth. So there was a ton of work put into just that part of it. And it didn't work very well, but it was a pretty cool game anyway.
Have you seen the video where the person cranks it to like 1,000% emotion? And when they talk or they go to emote, their faces just completely distort, and it's fucking hilarious. If you haven't seen it, I'll post it in Discord.
Please do. Please do. I want to see that. They like hacked it and moved the slider past where it should kind of idea?
Yeah, they modded the values.
Oh, lovely. Oh, lovely.
LA Noire overacting edition.
I can't remember what it's called.
So it's like LA Noire done by the Ren and Stimpy animators. Shouts out to Ren and Stimpy animators. A lot of people don't know that the animation was so wacky in that show for a reason. The reason it's so extreme and crazy is because it was a show by animators for animators, and the house rule for animators working on the show was they were not allowed to use the same face to express the same emotion twice in one episode. Now that you know that,
heck of a thing.
Go watch it again and you'll see. They don't use the same emotion or same face twice in one episode. Love is always described a different way in the episode. Fear is always described a different way in the episode. It's genius. It's not a kid's show, though.
No, it is not. Decidedly not.
Do you have any rubber walrus protectors? Fuck, that show's twisted. Sound effects.
I think I didn't watch the whole playthrough, but I would say that the serviceable, like we say for most of the Yakuza games, it's totally fine, but not amazing. Relays state well, does its job.
Yeah. There. I put the scene into Discord for y'all. Sound effects relay information well to the player and generally accurate, but not in any sort of amazing or standout way. Audio is passable. Okay. Now this okay and goods looks very familiar.
It's almost the same as we rank every Yakuza game.
Which is honestly a credit towards Yakuza. If they all end up getting the same ranking. That's impressive. To keep that consistency across now 6 games. This is number 5, and it's 6 games because we started at 0. We're using comp sci addressing here.
Something Lua.
I was just gonna say. I think it's. This was the last game I think before 0, but it really shows kind of them falling into place. It's in 0 kind of just knocks it out of the park, and then 7 will probably look, hopefully, quite a bit different from here, in some of these regards. But after 5 games, especially, like you look at any other series that survived more than like 3, like they really start kind of going downhill. Yeah. Or like not downhill, but even just diverging, or it's hard to, really try to either keep things consistent without them getting, boring or repetitive.
Thank God Dead Space didn't try to go to 3.
Yeah, so glad there was never a 3rd game.
The enemy behavior is passable. It is basic. It gets the job done and does not break. Boy. That's basically what it has to be to get bad, in my mind. Like, hey, look, there's an AI running into a wall. Let's go up and poke them. Like, what was I playing? I was just playing something where I kept seeing them running into walls. I don't remember what it was.
Me neither.
Oh well. That's how good the game was.
Slight tangent. Rage, you missed Insurgency yesterday. It seems like they may have tweaked some of the AI because they're doing some shit we weren't used to. They were kicking our ass a bit.
I had 9 deaths.
That makes me want to come play it.
On I can't remember the name of the map. I think Summit. You know what? There's that long run back to the finale.
Yeah.
We turned one of the corner of the roads, and their whole team was just there, like defending the road. And I'm like, what the hell? So we start shooting through them, and I'm like, I'm just gonna run. So I run through to the corner in between like the fencing, and there's just another squad in there just waiting. I'm like, oh, okay, well I'm dead. they wiped us there. It was like, oh.
There was literally like 20 bots just lined up, prone in front of each other, just like, what the fuck? I blew through 3 full clips with my FAL. And was out of ammo, and there's still enemies coming. I was just like, I don't know.
Well, okay.
I don't know. What do I do? They won with numbers. They won with numbers.
I may actually have to start wearing carriers.
Yeah, it was getting to that. Accessibilities. Silence.
Not great, unfortunately. I don't think.
Is it an okay or a bad? It has at least inversion on the sticks.
Yeah, but I think it's missing some core stuff.
I bet you it
if I
has
remember correctly.
no colorblind stuff. It's probably just like inversion in audio sliders.
You can't
Subtitles.
remap the left analog stick, but you can remap everything else. Other than that, it doesn't have closed captions.
Ooh. Are we
But
bad
isn't-
then? No CC, no colorblind, no full rebind. That's bad.
Yeah, that sounds like a bad to me.
Yeah, it's missing quite a few things. I don't know if they're 100% needed, but they still should at least they should be there.
The option should always be there.
What? No, stop. There we go. Does have controller inversion and subtitles. Luckily, the game is not difficult, but could still prevent people from being able to enjoy it. Which is sad, because it's such a good game. And it's no 0, but it's a good game. Okay, we made it to mechanics with enough time to rag on mechanics for half an hour or so before we go to the new game.
Good. Yeah, it's one of those things where it doesn't really localize well outside of Japan. The whole idle thing is the whole idle chapter is the kind of the main. There's a few other mechanics too that are kind of out there and a bit strange, but I think the main gripe most people have with their experience and the one that their mileage may vary the most with will be the idle.
So let's talk about the idle simulator for a bit, because let's ignore the whole aspect of might not play well outside of Japan. Let's just look at it as a pure game design, and I find it very, very odd as a decision to get half to 3/4 of the way through your game and just be like, yeah, the whole genre changes now. It's now a rhythm game. Because a beat 'em up to a rhythm game is a big change in approach, in style, in genre, in interest for the people. Now, I like rhythm games, so I didn't mind that game because it's a pretty competently done rhythm game. The team does mini games fantastic. They're great at blending games together. But it's such a departure from the style of Yakuza that I would not fault And I would totally understand other people getting there and going, this isn't the kind of game I like, and not playing it anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, Yakuza 5 was their kind of reboot after Dead Souls, if I remember it's called correctly. They really wanted to kind of reboot the series and divert as much as they kind of can. I think, after 4+ games in the series, you get kind of, creativity, you still want to work on something that's kind of fresh. And that was the direction they kind of moved things in. It is very out there. I do appreciate that they tried and they did it, but it's like the mileage may vary for most people. It's one of those things where it's not really bad, and it's not really just overall bad design. It's just something that we're not used to or isn't really common. So for people's expectations, it's not really communicated early on in the game either that's going to be what's coming up. So you're basically going to get turned 180 on your head, which some people will enjoy and some people won't enjoy, but that's just kind of how those things go.
It's definitely not good design. I'm never going to call it good design. To just completely 180 your mechanics for just a portion of the game and then go back to what it was. It can work sometimes, but you're going to turn off a portion of the audience. It's going to I don't see any way that you cannot. Because not everybody that plays a story-driven beat-em-up game is going to love a rhythm game. In fact, I know a lot of people that hate rhythm games, just flat out.
Yeah, I think at that point it depends on what that decision was for and kind of who it was for and stuff like that. Because it's not always just what can we do to appeal to the masses. There's still stylistic things in there where maybe they wanted to really expand on Haruka's background and story and have her start to kind of become more of a main character. Or maybe they wanted to take her and see how her own game would fare on its own. So maybe they put a chapter in that was kind of maybe a tester for that, because they knew the rest of the game would be able to live up to that, and then maybe it wasn't as popular as they thought, so they carry on. So there's a bunch of there could have been a bunch of decisions at play, but overall, yeah, it is a very strange kind of plan to just kind of 180 the thing. But I mean, I'm always down for people trying new things and breaking established molds.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm all for it. I like to see it. I'm just not going to say that this one was a good one. That's all.
Yeah.
I'm fine with them trying it. Nothing new ever gets made if no one ever breaks the mold. And these guys are good at breaking it. I just didn't like this one. And I don't think it was a good idea long term. The only reasoning I could logically see for doing it is, as you said, testing it out to see how people respond to it, to maybe give Haruka her own spin-off game at this point. That's the only logical thing I can think with them doing this.
Which is very possible. Like as you mentioned earlier, the idle game, the rhythm idle game genre is actually quite large in Japan. It plays very, very well in their arcades. So it's entirely possible that this was their test bed for it.
Yep. And even with that knowledge for other people, you can kind of understand why they might try to jam it into Yakuza. The big thing with me on this one is it's not a mini game.
Yeah, it's just here's a chapter of this.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, too bad.
Yeah, they always get away with putting all these different styles in because they're always optional mini games. And if you like that, you can go and play with it and explore it. And if you don't like to, you don't have to. In this one, you're put in your Haruka baby chair and you're force-fed. I liked it. I enjoyed it. But I definitely don't see everyone enjoying it. If you don't like rhythm games, if they really aren't your thing, if they really turn you off, maybe be aware that there is a big portion of rhythm game in this. Like, what was it? 2 or 3 streams? I was on Haruka?
Significant is what it was.
Sizable chunk. Yeah. And it's not really clear when it's going to end or if it's going to end. For all you know, that's just the game now.
If you're watching the review, it does end. But it is significant. A stream is usually 4, maybe 5 hours for me. So if it's 2 to 3 streams, that's quite a few hours you're investing in rhythm game. So where do we land on mechanics then? because the rest of the mini games were great. Even though they didn't fit. The taxi game was super fun. I loved no, I hated the picking up people part, but I loved the racing part.
Yeah, I was going to say the driving, you're like, what am I doing? And then it gets incredibly frustrating. The mechanics are kind of all over the place in this one. Like I said, they're trying to reboot and they try to do a bit too much. I wouldn't say it's anything more than an okay, and for bad, it's just going to come down to individual preference and people's mileage. Overall, I think the quality and the polish of the mechanics are there. At least it's just one of those things that happens when you have too much of something, is that the consistency isn't really going to be there, and the experiences aren't going to be as tailored.
Yeah, I can agree on the polish level. Rage didn't really play it, but I think he takes our word on that they actually play very well. The mini games handle very well. The batting mini game was fucking great. I didn't do any of it on stream because I started doing a little bit of it off stream, and I just did it all.
Yeah, that's a good sign for a mini game. The thing with me with the Yakuza games, and we've sort of talked this point to death before, is I don't gel with the beat 'em up. I love the voice acting. I love the story. The mini games are often very, very good. But the beat 'em up and I just don't gel. So
I'm not a big beat 'em up fan either. The main reason I get through the beat 'em up sections is because they're so low resistance. You don't have to train, you don't have to grind, you don't have to try. You just gonna run in and you push buttons, and then every once in a while you want to see something cool, so you push a different button, and then you laugh a little bit, and it's just easy consumable that way. It's a prepackaged meal. You're just like, oh, thank you. Oh, that was lovely. And yeah. You see a lot of games get away with that. Like, that's how you get mass appeal. You make it low enough friction that it's easy to consume, so people don't need to really try. You'll get a large market.
Yep.
Elder Scrolls. Yep. So where are we at mechanics? They're well built, but there is a mandatory drastic change. Are we still at an okay, or do we think it was bad? I mean, there was actual mandatory hunting too for a while there.
Yeah, I mean, it's mandatory. Different parts aren't outside of
It's not a terrible thing.
Yakuza games. Yeah, it's just like I said. It's individual. Mileage will vary. As long as that's noted, then I would just say it's okay. So I wouldn't say they were bad mechanics. They're just they don't fit very well. But I mean, for some people they might. So it's and for you, it wasn't as egregious as it could have been. I mean, like, the music is still solid. It's not like it was just shoehorned in the last minute and you're like, what is this? It's still enjoyable. At that point, it's personal preference, which, I mean, for mechanics overall is kind of up to people's own subjective kind of opinions.
I agree with all that, and that wasn't really... I guess more what I'm asking is it a bad thing to put two mechanics in such large quantity together that it's definitely only going to appeal to a subset of the people, especially when it's a well-established series?
I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing. We don't really have a place to just like call out weird ass design decisions, but the mechanics that they implemented, from my understanding, were solid enough even when the game itself changed quite drastically, that like I can't really bring myself to give them a bad in mechanics because of how well it was implemented. But at the same time, it's just a weird design decision to have like two non-Yakuza-y games be part of the forced as part of the main progression to the game.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. Definitely. I just wanted to make sure it was discussed and said, so nobody can argue in the future.
Although, like Pseudo said, we should call out that it was a very, very weird decision.
Yes, absolutely.
It's definitely ballsy. I can imagine there was probably quite a bit of
internal debate,
conflict. Yeah, regarding doing that. But yeah, I mean, you got to try new things. It's you never know. It did really well in Japan. I think a lot of reviewers gave it like full marks. So it's one of those things where it was like 0 was after this, if I remember my timeline correctly, and it wasn't until 0 that Western audiences really started to pick up Yakuza and have it blow up. So it was still very much their primary audience.
That's fair. That's fair. And like you said, it's a more common thing in Japan.
Yes, very much so.
Rhythm games in Japan is as common as Mario. Everyone here knows Mario. Almost everyone has played a Mario game. Really. I don't know if I know somebody who hasn't played a Mario game. Yakuza's biggest problem, instead of starting some new big storyline, they restrict themselves down to Kiryu and Haruka. They don't really, though. There's lots of new... Well, maybe up to 3 they do. 3, they're still inserting smaller characters. But 4 and onwards gets much more diverse. And 5 was... Kiryu was just a teeny piece of 5. Teeny piece. Like a fifth of the game? Something like that? Yeah. Quarter?
I'm just glad he was there.
Oh
Honestly.
yeah, I love Kiryu. I don't want Kiryu gone as a character. No siree. But there were a lot of good characters in 5, and I don't even know if Kiryu was my favorite character.
Yeah,
So
that's a whole thing. That is a whole thing.
They can write characters. They can. And I'm glad that they're going away from the Ubermensch. Another
Big
very
agree.
strange decision to merge such different game genres. For many people, mileage will vary on enjoyment. Played very well in Japan. But if you are not Rhythm, RHYTHEM, game fan, it may be difficult for you sometimes. The round lady dancing on the bridge. I don't know the round lady dancing on the bridge.
So yes, clearly favorite.
Bugs? I don't think there were any bugs.
I did do a quick look on PC Gaming Wiki. There didn't seem to be much at all called out.
These games are pretty impressive in their polish level. Always. They're well built. We're good on bugs. Is that right?
I'd say so. Nothing in a casual playthrough, at least. There might be some...
be found in the game. Casual playthrough, you should not expect to encounter any. Yeah, no. To narrow it down for you, GD gentlemen, if you really do need the help narrowing it down, as I said earlier, my favorite character was a home run in the game. We'll leave it at that. Everyone who's played it will understand. Ooh la la. Don't recognize. Video on Discord. Oh, I see. One of the Haruka rhythm game dance battles. I didn't look at my opponent in those games because you have things coming in from 4 different spots on the screen that you got to hit 4 different buttons for, and also watching the other. Yeah, I'm just focused on the stuff happening. I see nothing else. Zone right out. Just button. RNG is good as always. RNG restricted to encounter, spawns, and drops. Fortunately, this is just a cutscene. Oh, okay. I may not have.
Is that part optional? I can't remember. I think it was a side quest, if I remember correctly.
I didn't do a lot of the dancing side quests. Just a few in order to make sure my numbers were big enough to get top marks on the final dance, and then I went. Yep, absolutely. I can already see it right here on this monitor. I'm just waiting. Just waiting. And I'm just gonna give the control a good. I was quite happy. Quite happy. Like everything controlled pretty well.
Everything did what you wanted to when you wanted it to.
For the amount of different mini games that they had, it all worked. It did. The hunting worked. The racing worked. I mean, it was easy, but it didn't matter. I was able to, pull the turns I wanted to pull, hit all the power-ups, figure out my lines. It played like a racing game, an arcadey racing game, but an arcadey racing game's not easy to make. They fully made an arcadey racing game. They made a hunting game. They made a damn good rhythm game. The rhythm game played very well. So, yeah, I can't not call it good. I mean, the Yakuza combat's just the Yakuza combat. It's always been the Yakuza combat. It doesn't control any different than it ever did. It's fine. Whatever. They didn't have to work on that. They built everything else. They played to their strengths. Good team. Good team. I don't hear anybody arguing, so.
No, they have a level of polish that's kind of a bit rare nowadays, especially for minigame heavy games.
Yeah, like, I can think of AAA games that control worse than each of their mini games that are the genre of their mini.
Yep.
That's kind of scary when I think of it that way. Holy crap. Get your act together, people. Oh, I was specifically thinking the bikes and light cars in Just Cause 3.
Oh yeah, those handle like trash.
This is the worst I've ever seen. It was so bad that I just didn't use them.
I think that's an appropriate response.
The game has many styles of game in it, and they all control well. No complaints. Can't see giving that anything but a good. They didn't just make one game control well. They made lots of games control well. I think that's 3 goods and an okay.
Certainly looks that way.
Which is kind of what the critics were giving it too. So yeah, the mechanics were a weird choice, but their polish was so good that it just came out good.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it becomes a kind of subjective to personal opinion, right? If you're, if you like that style, then it's going to be great. And that kind of goes for most games in different genres. It's just you get to this weird, crossroads when you mix the two, that now you're forcing, two people or a person to play 2 different styles of games, and they may not like that, but for the people who do, the mechanics are at least polished enough that they will enjoy it.
Yeah. And you know what? It's fair. It deserves the good, so that the people that do like those mechanics will look at it and pay attention to it, and they go, hey, I like these things. Maybe I should check that out. Because you know what? If you do like a really good story with really good characters, and you don't mind playing rhythm games and lots of mini games, then yeah, you should be fucking playing Yakuza games. What are you doing? Go play them. All of them. What have you done with your life?
Just had a random thought. I want a Mario Party game, but in the style of Yakuza. I want Yakuza Party. That seems like something Majima could pull off.
Mario Yakuza, maybe? Like,
Yeah, the way you said
Like
it would
with
be
Mario
like the Mario
characters,
Party
but
characters
a
running around in the
Yakuza
Yakuza
game?
world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yakuza Party is what I meant to say.
You want the Yakuza characters in a mini game like Mario Party.
I want just that board game style.
Yeah, board game
want Mario
Yakuza
Party.
multiplayer online, so that you can play Majima and run around and bat people in mini games.
I can see that working, like,
I could
really
too.
well,
I could
actually.
Yeah, I'd play it. I'd buy it. I'd do it on stream. That's a great idea. I like it. That's two great game ideas in that review. Because I'm standing by my Yakuza-styled superhero games being a fucking great idea. That's the format that they should be built in. Boom. Hey, why is... Oh, that's what's wrong. There you go. There you go. Let's change the title.
Now it's time for Darkwood.
Darkwood. Spoopy Darkwood reviews for Halloween. Hey, why do you have the... Hold on, view. Grid lines, there we go. Go away, grid lines. Thank you. All right. You played this one, right, GD? You know this game? Pretty sure. Rage played it, I think. That's why you recommended it to me. Have you played it before, Pseudo?
No, I have not.
But you watched me play it. I know that.
Yeah.
So you got the experience, at least. But let me say that after every stream of this game, my shirt was sweaty and my mouse was soaked.
It's incredible, absolutely incredible what they managed to do in a top-down 2D game to build atmosphere. Like, holy shit.
We'll definitely talk it when we get to audio, but scope. Also,
Yes.
Yakuza was scope. They just had so much budget that they were able to polish 8 games.
And they did. And they were all really good.
Yeah, they put their money where it was needed. They spent it at the right place. They just had a massive budget. And this is why you work well with a budget on small scale, so that you can prove you know how to use the budget on large scale, so that when you're given a budget, you come out with Yakuza and not Heavenly Sword.
Yes.
That's the natural order of things. Now, world building is a good. Let's talk about why.
So I'll let you lead into this one, because I have a great many things to say.
I don't even know how to put it into words. That's why it gets so good.
Right. So maybe I'll lead into it then. The world building in Darkwood, despite the world being, like the actual maps being procedurally generated, is put together in such a way that it drags you into caring about every single character in the game, despite, Deus eventually murdering all of them in his playthrough. It makes you feel a sense of dread with how the world is falling apart and being encroached upon by this almost felt bad, being encroached upon by this curse, and you don't really know what's going on. And the whole introduction section of, this isn't spoilers, it's the literal introduction section of the game. If you've ever fired up the game, you played this section of you being dragged away into the crazy doctor's place, and you're just like, what the fuck is going on? So well done. So well done.
Yeah. Strong intro. Very strong intro. Lots of world building in the intro before throwing you in and then just letting you go. And you know what? It's very Dark Souls design style that way. Here's a big expose about the history of the world. Now we're just going to drop you in it and let you explore it.
With some vague guidance.
Building was essential to the setup of the game, and they nailed it perfectly. Created an interesting and deep world worth exploring. That's the key. Worth exploring. After a while, you're not running around in the woods necessarily looking for loot. You're looking for what's going on. You want to know what's up. There just happens to be loot everywhere as you're going. So it's always worth it. We'll get into that more probably in mechanics. Characters. Are we at a good on characters?
I would say yes.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed the characters they had.
They're all very unique, all very spoopy. They're all well written. They're
moved very well. Are well written and flushed out characters.
I figured out the word I was looking for. Disconcerting. All of the characters are very disconcerting.
There's quite a few, but each one like stands out in their own right.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
They're all very
like,
unique. Yeah, they're well written. They're very individualistic. Each one has wants, needs, desires, motives. They'll help you for different reasons. They won't help you for different reasons. And your actions will influence their response towards you. That's a good game character. Storyline.
So which I didn't see the final stream of Darkwood for you. Which ending did you get?
The longest one.
Describe it so I don't spoil.
I burned it and went out the ashes.
Yeah. All right. So there is another storyline, another ending rather.
There's two other endings apparently, and one of them I almost got, but I didn't understand a mechanic and got killed by invincible chompers.
Yeah, there's the epilogue thing that you can get, but there are two like full-on endings depending on what you've done during the game that you can unlock. They're both very much on point for the rest of the storyline through the game. As we mentioned in the beginning, it sort of throws you into disarray at the start of the game, tells you to, well, it doesn't really tell you to go figure out what the hell's going on, but gives you motivation to go figure out what the hell is going on. And then you spend basically the entire game doing that, and things continue getting more and more fucked up as you're going through the game. And yeah, I'm going to have a really hard time giving this anything but a good.
To come up to just like the very beginning of the game, essentially the storyline to get you going on what's happening is, that guy stole my key. I need to get that back to get out of here. That's your setup. Can't go farther than that. The rest is up to you.
Doesn't actually do anything to explain anything. It just gives you motivation. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to go get it. I'm going to go get the key.
And anybody that wasn't helping me was against me. I got out. Fuck those people. Yeah. I can't give it anything but a good either. Always hard to write up. Huh?
I said y'all covered what I wanted to say already.
All right.
We're very enthused about this game.
Always hard to write up a storyline without spoilers. It is interesting enough to make you want to find more in the game.
It's yeah, it's especially like these style of games. We usually find they don't always have, you know, fantastic stories. They're kind of mostly focused on a lot of survival, a lot of other mechanics first, and then they'll put in a story after to kind of drive things and give a bit of purpose. But this one, it definitely, you know, it wasn't just a afterthought or a leverage. It was, you know, this has purpose, and like I said, it's all scoping. And they were like, we'll keep everything intertwined, everything scoped properly, and everything will be, you know, polished and finished as it should. And it came together very well.
And because of the way they did it, performance is good. You can
you're gonna
play
have a hard time
this if you have a device.
I'm gonna have a hard time finding something that won't run Darkwood.
This might be like one of the only top-down games I want to give good animation to.
It's the only one that I can think of that I'd give good animation.
But it definitely deserves it. Right down to popping the clips into the pistol, reloading the double-barrel shotguns, the weight
of your swings when you're using a melee weapon.
The way the enemies move and explode and twist and combine. The way the centipede moves when it dies.
It's so gross.
Okay, if I can name the animation and it gives Rage the heebie-jeebies, that's a good.
It's a very, very good game.
Rage the heebie-jeebies. That's where we're at. But yeah, everything.
Fucking love
The
this
eating,
game.
like, you know, you take pills. I could see the hand go up. The way the coat flows and moves in the wind when you run. And the chompers. People kept on asking me, what is that? What is that? If you draw a human head outline, like a sprite type idea, and then you just draw teeth through the middle and you rip it open, that's what that was.
Terrifying.
And style is good. Game oozes unique and original style that takes inspiration from sources such as HP and Geiger. Would go from like, yeah, I don't want to give too much away, but there's some inspirations in there. There is some spoopy to explore. If you like exploring spoopy and you haven't played this game, you've done yourself a disservice. The music was also good. I don't know if I'd listen to it normally, but the music made the scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of atmospheric music in Darkwood, or even just atmospheric noise. But the time that you do hear like some actual music, you're just like, whoa.
Yeah, Pseudo.
Yeah, I'm mostly just waiting until we get to sound effects. It's just atmosphere. But for music, yeah, as Rage is saying, a lot of it is, you know, atmospheric noise. But it's one of those things when you're doing horror, you have to leverage that pretty heavily. Either when you do have music or sounds, and also the absence of sounds as well, combined. But overall, like, it's just the setting of the atmosphere is just something they've kind of done perfect, and it shows that spooky doesn't have to be realistic, or doesn't have to be, you know, like live action or anything, right?
Or high fidelity, even.
Yeah. It just has to be atmosphere. It's all about the atmosphere. You just put some control in, and then you just build an atmosphere around it, and you can make the brain very uncomfortable.
So we're in agreement that despite this one kind of breaks the mold on our typical review system, where for musical score to get a good, usually it has to be like, I would listen to this. But this is just it's used so correctly, so perfectly, in such the right places, with the right mixing and mastering and producing behind it, that it sounded good. I enjoyed it. It heightened the experience of the game.
And I think the key here is just how much it heightened the experience of the game, because it is very significant.
Yes, the music is core to the experience of the game. This isn't like other games where we give it an okay because we didn't notice the music, and we say, we didn't notice the music, and that's a good thing, because that's what those games need. You don't want to be focused on the music at all. I was focused on the music. You're focused on the sound, because the sound design is the core element of the horror in the game. They wanted you focused on the sound so that you can hear things coming, you can hear what's going on. You kind of needed to know before it just showed up on you, because you needed to be prepared for things. It took you a minute to get ready for it. You couldn't just jump into a fight on the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
Because you're so focused on that, the music has to be perfect. You're listening to it all the time. You're actively listening to it. Yeah. I cannot give this anything but a good. The production quality was fantastic, and the use and placement of music was perfect for the genre. Now, as I've said, you do actually have to be careful with music, because it can, when you have people's attention focused on the music, you can kill them with it. Happened. Your heart will take the beat of the music, and you can use it to create intensity, and that's why I would start sweating. They would increase the rhythm and increase the rhythm and increase the rhythm of the music as the intensity goes up, and your heart will follow along. And if you go too far, you can push people into cardiac arrest.
Which is bad, for the record.
Do be careful. There was a famous case study of this in a live performance where multiple members of the audience actually had a heart attack. And that's why we don't do this anymore. So do be aware of this. Pay attention. All you horror game creators. Voice acting. There was none.
And I think that's
okay.
And okay. Yeah. I would have really loved voice acting in this game, specifically for Wolf and for a couple of the other characters.
It didn't even need to be voice acting. It could have been,
or at least some barks or something.
Yeah, I was going to say, it could have taken the Hollow Knight approach and just given us a tone to give us some texture to the words, some context to them.
I feel like the game does miss out because of that, which is unfortunate, and why I can't give it a good for not having voice acting.
Big agree. But it's not a bad, because bad voice acting would be bad.
Yes. All right, Pseudo, go nuts.
Voice acting at all. It does not deter. However, some characters do lose depth without any sound at all. It's all yours.
All right. Yeah, real spoopy, but like good on sound effects. I think it's actually one of the strongest aspects of the game, which is saying a lot, because the game has a lot to offer. But it's one of those things where if you're doing horror, and I think we talked about this last year on the panel on how to make horror games. All horror is or the main things for horror is it's atmosphere, it's tension, it's uncomfortableness, it's all that kind of stuff, and that comes from places you wouldn't assume, and that's kind of what's the point of it is. It's something even as simple as the way that metal scrapes or creaks when you move it around. It's all the kind of subtle stuff that you don't really pay attention to that adds up and kind of makes you uncomfortable. It's one of those things where it's eerie. It sounds like, on its own, the sound effects can be, a bit annoying, or they can be, I'm trying to think of the word irritating and what it is, but you put it in this context, and now it's, it builds tension. You're just moving a table, but there's noise that it's making. If you put it in any other game, it'd be like, that's really annoying. But for this game, it suits it. And not only that, but it also serves to, just build the tension, let alone all the combat sounds, the sounds the creatures make, just the overall ambience of what's going on, kind of.
The gush of a heavy melee weapon in this game when you hit something with it is just,
I do like that Pseudo really touched on the sound of like the tables moving and stuff like that, because that does play such a huge role, because you put them in places because enemies will hit them and move them as they move, and you know where the enemy is from them running into it. You can kind of gauge where they are. But before that, when you're just starting out, they'll just hit furniture and you hear it and you're like, table moving in that room.
I don't want to go in there.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you don't really expect it too much, because it's you're seeing a top-down 2D game, and for the most part, those typically have kind of arcade-like and more cartoony sounds. But this one went for quite realistic samples, and even though the graphics and stuff are far from realistic as you can get, it still fits and still suits and still adds a layer of believability to it that allows your brain to get sucked in and then just get very uncomfortable and anxious.
It's funny you say that, because I would say this is the most immersive I've ever felt in a top-down game.
Oh, hands down, the most immersive top-down game ever made.
I usually hate this genre. Like, I see a top-down game, I'm like, whatever, just keep looking. And I'll just browse right over it without paying any attention, and that's why I missed Darkwood. It showed up and I was like, top-down. I was
like, look, you really got to play Darkwood.
I think I even have top-down filtered out in my Steam results.
This would not surprise me.
No, not really. Just new respect for Darkwood. It's not the rule, it's the exception, for sure. This game is a masterpiece. I always talk about transcendent genres, transcendent games, where like I don't give it a genre, I don't give it anything. It's just like a game you should play. Period. That's all there is to it. What kind of genre is it? It's good.
Just go play the damn game.
Yeah, it's the good genre. Darkwood goes in that. Absolutely. Games like Chrono Trigger go in that genre.
Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG, StarCraft,
Super
Dark
Mario
Souls, Bloodborne. Just play the damn game.
Actually, you know what? One other game that I would put in that genre is also top-down, and I enjoyed that game as well, Link to the Past.
Is it top-down? Well, I guess it is.
Yes, it is.
It's more, well, is it technically isometric?
No. Isometric is 45 degree. By definition.
Yeah, I guess it is top-down. But yeah, also an incredible game.
It's on a teeny tiny angle, but its play is top down. They just wanted to give you some context forward.
Oblique.
It plays like a top down. But yeah, you do get a little bit more context and texture on the items in that view still. Fair enough. So then this is the only top down game that I would put there. That's the closest one to it.
Fucking incredible.
Yeah, everything about it.
Link to the Past is the best Legend of Zelda game coming at you. Nobody's going to come at you.
No, we agree with you.
That's not a controversial opinion. personally, my favorite is Ocarina of Time, but Link to the Past is probably the best.
Ocarina of Time I put directly under it. That was a very good game. But no, yeah, I'm with you, Punk. I owned multiple carts of Link to the Past and played it so much as a kid that I got to the point where I would do 100% runs in one sitting. That's probably the closest I ever got to like speed running and stuff.
Have you ever played the Super Metroid / Link to the Past randomizer?
No, I haven't, but I am.
You should play that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if people are going to ban me for saying I put Ocarina of Time slightly under Link to the Past, I don't even want to know those people. They're not worth my time. They're not open to discussing the merits of a game. They just want a fanboy, and I'm not interested in that. He's not dabbled in randos either.
The Link to the Past Super Metroid rando is a heck of a thing.
Link to the Past Super Metroid what?
Yeah.
I've seen Link to the Past randomizers. I've seen Metroid randomizers. I didn't realize there's one that involves both of them.
It's one that's both games. It's great.
Okay, that's going to be in the Discord if anybody wants to see what Rage is talking about. Darkwood enemy behavior. AI/enemy behavior.
It's I don't know, like it's fairly simplistic for the most part. It's definitely not less than it needs to be. I wouldn't say it's more than it needs to be either, because the enemies that you're dealing with are fairly like animalistic and feral.
They did kind of just run right past me while I was standing in a corner a few times, not hidden. The Scary Manager AI. Do tell more. Do you know about the Scary Manager AI, Rage?
No.
Have you heard of this? Excellent. So they actually have a like a behavior tree taking care of the overall spoopy level.
I guess it's akin to the director.
Yep.
AI.
Sounds like
director that Left 4 Dead games have. And I guess Back 4 Blood.
Tries to spook you for... Oh, yeah, okay. I see what you're talking about. Yeah. All the nighttime events and stuff like that, randomly moving furniture, doors that just open with no enemy actually being there, all that stuff. That was pretty well timed. They did it at lulls where it hasn't been action for a while. We're going to just give you a little click and that's it. I don't remember any spoops outside of house events, but it definitely added a lot to the evenings. That's a good point. It's definitely not a bad.
No, it's at least an okay. I just don't know if it qualifies for good.
I mean, I still see a lot of those. You know what? They did have to time them really well, and the sense of timing was pretty damn good.
I would have liked a bit more organic behavior out of the creatures. They don't always have to just charge at you, especially if they're in a pack and stuff like that. There's a bit of improvement there. That could be a bit terrifying, like you get surrounded and they just start, like circling you, or they kind of pace back and forth, or even just something like feints, stuff like that.
Follow can really you and run away, and follow you and run away, and stuff like that.
Getting stalked. There's room for improvement, especially when it comes to horror.
Yeah, you convinced.
Yeah, because the gold standard for me for horror games is still Alien Isolation, and the main reason for that is that it gets to that feeling of organicness where it's no longer me versus the machine, it's me versus this fucking creature, and it becomes so believable just in how it acts and its unpredictability, and it doesn't fall into patterns is the main thing. Doesn't have to be too crazy out there, but just in their behavior when it's not a cemented tree. If they start doing other things, and it doesn't have to be too crazy of a range, but it every little bit kind of adds another layer of believability to it.
Yeah, and the work that they did with the AI for the Alien and Alien Isolations is incredible.
Bar setting.
That is nutty. I don't know if we'll ever see something like that again for quite a while. That was a big risk they took in that. I should request that. Put you through that.
Maybe next year, next Halloween.
I like the way you've worded that. Put me through that. Thanks. I appreciate that.
It's a challenge. It's an experience.
There are two ways the playthrough of that game goes. Either the AI derps and you just run around like uncontested, or you just get shat upon.
You have to get real good at the traps and planning and knowing the routes, or you get lucky sometimes and just run.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like a quick game. You're gonna have to spend some time with it if you want to get through it. Accessibilities on Darkwood. I think this might be its only bad.
Yeah, contrast deficient people are going to have a really hard time with Darkwood. Let me just pull up the options here. Yeah, there's basically nothing. There's not much to say for like Darkwood as far as accessibility goes, which is disappointing.
It is, because it's such a phenomenal game.
There is at least full controller rebinding, but that's about all it's got.
We got all the way up to voice acting before it got its first okay.
It's a good game.
Mechanics. So let's give it another okay or another good and go back to that trend and talk about why the mechanics all play so well together. Or are you going to put it at an okay?
There's some parts of the well, no, that's more control than mechanics. Anything I dislike mechanically.
You could consider part of the bad controls as a mechanic because it is intentionally clunky, mechanically designed to be clunky, but it's a good thing, actually. I don't super enjoy it. It's not my personal taste, but it creates a lot of tension. And if you are frame perfect and really, really, really good, you can still take on pretty much everything. Yeah, if you haven't actually played this poop, you have to play it.
It's incredible.
And it's the perfect
by Darkwood.
It's the perfect evening to experience it too. It is the ultimate Halloween game. I like the crafting system. I like the level of loot. I like the combat. I like the feel of the guns. I felt like I could use it, but I'm not an expert with it. I had to be careful. It still was worth having. It didn't guarantee survival. And if I fucked up with it, it was worse than my melee weapon. But I think it all played really, really well. I like the feeling of the different guns. They felt different and individual. They handled different. The melee weapons handled differently. It took a little bit of learning for each one, but I was able to use it once I felt it out. Honestly, the difficulty curve was even a little soft for me. GD, I was always super rich and flush with goods to the point where if I died, I didn't even have to go get my body back if I didn't want to. I could have just bought everything on my body again. It'll be fine. But I was able to go get my body again all the time, so it didn't matter. I think the level of goods and stuff in there accounts for a wider variety of people than the seasoned, veteran elites being able to play it, which is a good thing. We want the people who are doing these types of games for their first time to be able to get through even a difficult one, as long as there's enough stuff here. They might have a hard time. They might need to start a couple times even if they're not very good, but you can get through. It's not the most punishing thing ever. By the time you can get to the next area where you don't have a previous stash of stuff to rely on, you've learned the game well enough that you can get by. It'll be okay. You're looking at an entire spectrum of gamers. Yep. Yeah, sounds like we agree. Excellent. Yeah. I like the mechanic of the evening. I like the mechanic of...
Some of the nighttime mechanics are a little jank.
Once you learn how to deal with them, it's different. There's just ways to deal with everything. They just throw problems at you, and you got to figure out how to solve it, and they'll just murder you until you do.
Yep. Some of it's a little jank, but there's also not anything really that, like, it doesn't punish you super hard.
Exactly. If you die at night, it's such a small punishment that, hey, I've learned this thing, I shouldn't do that next time, and that's it.
And it's not too punishing, but also not too casual to the point where you still don't want to die. So there's still that tension in staying alive, because there's certain games, that have tried this, especially even in the horror aspect, where if there isn't a penalty for death, you're just like, okay, well, I'll just run out and die, and then whatever, right? And then now you don't really have a stake in survival, and kind of loses its horror appeal.
Yes, you have to. You have to be worried about dying. You have to care about dying. You need enough consequence to make you not want to die. Big agree. Yeah, the mechanics are well thought out, well flushed out, and enough. Well thought out, well flushed out, and have enough consequence to keep the player interested without turning them off. There was definitely frustrating moments for me, but not everyone is going to necessarily be frustrated. Some will.
Yeah, and the level of frustration is not such that it hinders the game. I feel like it, in some ways, actually helps the game.
It does want to create a mood and an atmosphere and a feeling. And being lost in a wood should maybe have a feeling of frustration to it, but I still was frustrated and not necessarily happy about it at the time.
Yeah.
Bugs. Well, I mean, I teased out that one, but it's not like it just happened. Like, I noticed a behavior in the game that I only noticed because I kind of understand what was going on in the background, and then went, I wonder how they'd resolve this situation.
And it turns out they don't.
So I was kind of able to neutralize like the entire first forest. Every night was just AFK. But not everyone is going to know that and figure that out. Yeah. It didn't just happen. I had to like try to break it.
And it's only really applicable in the first area as well.
After that, it was too complicated of a layout to even be worth doing. So, other than that, there was no like bugs that interfered with the game.
Yeah, and that one's mostly like an optional one too. It's more of a user enforced exploit at that point, rather than like.
Yeah, I guess it's more of an exploit than a bug. I'm still proud of that one though.
As you should be.
Explain. He just has magnet hands.
So we had a good or an okay?
I'd say good.
Yeah, I'd say.
There's not really any bugs that you're going to run into that will ruin a casual playthrough, except the centipede.
Yeah. RNG, I think, was great.
Yep. Very appropriately used. The procedural generation of the map, loot tables on enemies. What else? I think that's it.
Maybe events
Evening
and their triggers.
events, yeah. There's definitely some RNG to the evening events. I mean, part of it is a manager for the timing for when they happen, but what happens is randomized to an extent. Probably a tabled thing. And
Yeah, I was going to say, it's probably pulling from a table for each area and
oh yeah, it's a
trying to figure out which
tabled-
one will spook you out the most.
tabled for an area and weighted based on what has happened in previous nights. That's how I see it being done. Because after you have a really intense evening, you tend to get at least one quieter night right after. Almost always.
Yeah.
Control. I cannot call it good. It can never be called good.
No, it has enough problems that
I don't even know if they're problems.
I can't give it a good.
I don't even know if they're problems. Because like all the items and contextual menus and interacting with things in the world, it all handles very, very well. And that is really good. But when it gets into the combat and the interacting with the world itself as the character is when it gets clunky. And that is by design. That creates the tension. If combat is too easy, if you can just roll through everything and do it no problem, it's too easy. This guy is not a fighter. He's not a trained combatant. He's a dude stuck in a forest. And they want it to be that if that dog gets the drop on you, yeah, you might die. You can't just respond quickly.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking of is the melee mechanics specifically. And like, rather than a charge for your heavy attack, like it makes more sense for it to be a cooldown. And the charge feels really awkward, and
that's what gives it the ability to get a drop on you.
Yeah, but
it's the mechanic of if something is hit, it's staggered and interrupts what it's doing, which you can abuse as well towards them. But if something gets close to you, you can't use that attack. You just can't. You do have your middlemost click regular attack. But no, if it gets the drop on you, it's going to kill you. That's why I said I can't call it a good. It's not a good, but it is an okay by design.
But if that's their intent, then would we say that that is a good? Because they intended it to be unwieldy and clunky. And the rest of the interaction with the game is actually great. Like everything, like moving around feels snappy, and interacting with your inventory feels snappy, and the context menus are fairly well laid out, and it's easy to do crafting, it's easy to do inventory management, it's easy to interact with other characters in the game.
It still has at least the immediate feeling of an okay in Control, even if intentional, which gives it the good in mechanics in my mind.
I think there's ways to give a similar feeling without having to restrict as much interactivity from the player.
We could just make the enemies better.
Or more of them.
I think the number is good for the spooky feeling. If there's too many of them, then it just feels like a bug hunt.
Yeah, but think about some of the situations with like the packs of dogs and stuff, and if your smash was a cooldown rather than a charge, how it would feel to have one extra dog in that pack.
I
Because you'd be able to disable one, and then there'd be another 3 coming at you, and you're just like, ah!
we'd have to be going back to the AI and sprucing it back up to the good with what we were talking about then, with, you know, enemies following you and staying at a distance and running away. And if we were to improve control and give them that sort of a behavior, I think you can keep the numbers down and keep the feeling. I think that would make it a good. Then you could put the controls into a point where they are good controls. I think with how it works best with the game, but I still would have a problem of saying it's good combat control. Just like Resident Evil. It's that way by design to create tension, but it's not good. It's intentional, but not good.
Maybe we call it a high okay and call out that it is intentionally clunky in the combat.
Yeah.
And that
I'm cool
everything
with that.
else is fine.
Yeah, I'm totally good with that. I completely agree with that. But there's a whole lot of improvements that need to be made to give it that good control, and it's probably more than their scope allowed for.
Yeah, and again, this is another instance of just an incredibly well-scoped indie project that came out just phenomenally well.
Crafting and all areas other than combat are great. Combat is intentionally clunky for the atmosphere and fear factor when exploring, because you do need to know they're there before they know you're there. Oh my god, you do. It's so shocking, the difference. Like you get the drop on them, you're like, whack! And you just keep going, and they get the drop on you, and you're like, oh fuck, I'm dead!
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, if it had that really good control and the rest of the game was just designed the way it is now, I just never would have died, and it wouldn't have been scary. So I get it, but there's improvement to be made still. Maybe for a second one. Give these guys more budget, please. Somebody give them money.
The improvements, I think, are to things that aren't control related. Like, that's what needs to be done. You need to work on enemy AI. You need to work on enemy placement. You need to work on enemy, pack behaviors, like Pseudo was calling out, stuff like that. And then that would allow you that headroom. But as it stands, the enemies are a little too simplistic to give you like full control during combat.
Yep. But what they did, masterful on their budget.
Oh, absolutely.
Just masterful. Yeah, go play Darkwood.
It's a great game. Go buy it. It's on sale. $5. In fact, I just bought it again because the version that I had was from GOG. So I just bought it on Steam.
Nice.